Okay, so let's talk about your secondary method of throwing. This next method of throwing is going to be an overhand ball that's thrown, something that's going to require you to cover distances larger than 20 yards, 25, 30, 40, 50 yards. Sometimes you look at current day goalkeepers. Jens Lehmann comes to the top, off the top of my head. Peter Schmeichel in the decade past. These are goalkeepers who could throw the ball 60 yards, 65 yards, and instead of just using it as a method of distribution, now it actually becomes an offensive weapon for them. The technique is correct. With regards to the technique, there's hardly anything that's similar between bowling a ball technically and throwing a ball over the top. All right, about the only thing that may be similarity-wise is where the ball sits, and the ball still will sit in the palm of your hand right here like this, but that's about the end of it. All right? In terms of how you throw a ball over the top, as before with a bowl ball where your hips and shoulders are facing your target, in this particular case, they don't face the target. You want your, if I'm throwing to you, all right, and maybe you're 30 yards away, my hips and shoulders don't want to face you. My hips and shoulders want to be perpendicular to you. All right? This poses problems for a lot of Americans in general, Americans who play baseball. All right? They're taught their throwing mechanics for baseball are hips and shoulders need to face the target, and they throw more with their elbow. All right? A lot of American goalkeepers have difficulty with this because here, hips and shoulders cannot be facing the target. They need to face perpendicular, and the throw actually comes from down here. Now, a lot of people also don't understand that the majority of your power and energy in throwing this ball doesn't even come from your arm. All right? It comes from your waist. And the idea here is that I've got to bend. If I'm going to throw this way here, right? I want to throw straight that way. My hips and shoulders are facing here. I've got to come back here. I've got to bend at my knees. That ball sits in my hand, and I kind of rest it against my forearm here. All right? My left arm, if I'm a right-handed thrower, my left arm and hand are going to come up here, and this is twofold. Number one, this is a balancing position for me to make sure I just don't completely fall over backwards. But the other aspect to this is that it's going to be a leverage mechanism. I'm going to push this hand down as hard as I can, and it's going to start to force my waist up into it, all right, to come to an upper position here. At the same time that's happening, this arm from back here is going to come over the top. All right, so very little of the work gets done with the shoulders, and absolutely none should be done with the elbow. This elbow should never bend. All right, unlike American baseball where players are throwing from the elbow, this elbow should never bend at all. It should be straight, and this is much more of like a catapult or a leveraging mechanism where the power comes from your waist and from your hips. The more you bend here at your knees, all right, the lower you get, the more leverage and more energy you have. That equals more distance for yourself. All right, so don't just throw from a tall position where your torso and your legs are just very tall. Allow yourself to bend at your knees and to bend at your waist as much as you can. Take that left arm here, that left hand, and drive it down. At the same time, you're coming right over the top. Okay? In theory, you would like your shoulder, like the material of your jersey, all right, or your top, to brush your ears. And you would like to have that brush your ears. You really would like your mechanics to come right over the top at you. There. Now, as you're doing this, as you're making this motion here, and it's coming over the top, as you release, all right, and we'll talk about the release point here in a second, but as you release and you start to step through, then your hips and shoulders can turn. But the hips and shoulders can't turn towards the target until you've started the release point. All right, now let's talk about the release point. Where is the release point? Again, the release point should be in line with your body. If I take this ball, all right, and I'm throwing this way, and I come here, and then I release back here behind my head, if I can take a straight line right up through the top of my head, and I release this ball somewhere back here behind my head, the trajectory tends to go like this. I get a lot of loop to the throw, which generally is not good because that arc means it's taking more time to get to my target, wherever my teammate is that I'm targeting. Sometimes you will need a little more arc, a little more trajectory if you're trying to cover long distances. All right, if Jens Lehmann or Schmeichel, they're trying to throw a ball to the midfield stripe, it's not going to be completely flat. There's going to be a little bit of arc to it. Now on the opposite side, if I'm just trying to throw a ball 30 yards, then I want to make sure there's no loop at all. I want it as straight as it can be. All right. As a matter of fact, all right, I would like to actually bend down once I release. Now, if I release too late, all right, and my point of release comes in front of my head, and I release here, now the tendency is for the ball to get driven down into the ground early, and I'm not covering as much distance and getting the ball as quickly as I can to my point, because it's getting driven down into the ground, it's bouncing off the ground, all right, it's taking away energy, and then it just takes longer for the ball to get there. So you would like the release point to be right above the head there. Now, the next thing is when you step into this ball, and again, just if we're right-handed, we want to step in, our final step has to be with the left foot. All right, I've got to be there with that left foot. Now, when I step in, when I come from there and I step in, you want to bend. Generally, you want to bend on this front leg. All right, the reason is I want to get my hips down to the ground. I want to get my hips lower. The lower I get my hips, the flatter and lower my trajectory is. All right, I don't want to throw a ball from up here to a teammate, and especially if I'm trying to throw to their feet. You want to throw this ball to your teammate's feet. It's very difficult for your teammate to receive a ball that's thrown to him when the ball starts up here. Now, if I can sink my hips down though, and I can bend my knees, and now the throw comes from there, all right, it's much easier for him to receive. Much easier for him to receive, as opposed to coming from way up here. So the idea is that when you step in, when I step in, I want to bend here. All right, bend there, then I can come over the top, release, and then follow through and start to turn my hips and shoulders. Again, when you ask yourself, this technique takes some time. All right? There are not a whole lot of people that get it right off the bat. All right? It takes some time. It's going to take some practice. But the key, it's very important that you get it correctly, because this throw, if it's not accurate and it's not quick, will pose a lot of problems for you. It's going to limit your capability in terms of distributing the ball quickly and accurately out away from your goal and downfield. Now again, a lot like the bowl, you can use your ball, the release of your ball, to give you an idea as to what you need to fix with your technique. The vast majority of people who do this, all right, will tend to come from the side here. They come more from this way as opposed from up here. Right? And this poses a problem, because you'll notice goalkeepers who come from here, or if you yourself are a goalkeeper and you throw a ball and you come from here, as the ball comes out of your hands, it's going to rotate. It's going to rotate from right to left, and it's going to curve out to your right. And that's really not what you want, because that spinning of the ball like this causes friction against the air. Okay? And it means not only is it curving, but it's slowing down, and it's not getting from point A, which is you, to point B, which is your teammate, as fast as possible. So you got to really make sure that you're not coming from the side here, all right, but that you turn hips and shoulders facing away from your target, and you're coming over the top there, like this, all right? So it's got to come there. One easy way to work with it without a ball, because sometimes it's tough to work without a ball, is just to work this motion like that, just to get used to the waist, all right? Develop as much power, as much energy, all right, as you can.